Hey guys, welcome to Tuesday Talks. I am the host this week. I'm Tanner.
I'm Jono.
And I'm Connor.
Awesome. And we are going to break down Pastor Gunnar's sermon from Sunday, talking a lot about self-righteousness and basically being self-righteous and saved by grace. So I'm just going to kick it out there. What did you guys think of the sermon on Sunday?
Yeah, it was good. It put a lot of thought, or directed a lot of thought towards me, and was like, how can I look inward more? How can I? So the whole sermon was about there's the like inner self and outer self, and we kind of exude confidence, or we've got it all together on the outside, but on the inside we could be self-righteous and just full of anger, pain. And to me, the biggest thought was, how can I look inward more, and how can I detect that I'm being self-righteous, being angry, and how can I, with that, be more open and bring that inside out so it can be like polished and smoothed over, and those things can come to light and then go away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it pulled me pretty heavily inward focused because it's really easy to just say, you know what, I know more than you do. I'm just gonna ignore what you think because I'm the expert. Especially in a technical field like I work in, and that's very commonly my gut internal reaction. And then I think about it and I go, well, that's not very Christ-like of me to say. It really just kind of put that spotlight on me internally. And it's really made me even more self-aware than I already am about some of my own internal thought processes and how what my gut reaction of things is and what it should be.
Yeah, that's a good point, because again, technical field, we're constantly being like, wait, we definitely think we know more about this certain field, this small specific field of technology, or what we know. Especially in our job, this happens, that we tend to think we know more than other people who are serving. But just telling that outright, one, you could be wrong, which is humbling if that is the case, and it actually brings the inside out a little bit more. But two, if you are right, like telling that person straight up you're wrong usually isn't the best way to go about it. There's usually a more Christ-like way to say, hey, I'm going to train you up, I'm going to teach you, and so you can learn yourself how to learn this small field and then grow and help other people.
Absolutely. Humble leadership, or Christ-like leadership. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for context, by the way, the sermon was preached on Luke 7:36 through 50, I believe is what the exact verses were. Essentially talking about the Pharisee who had a party at his house, invited all the who's who's, the popular crowd, and then a woman actually came and threw herself to Jesus's feet and essentially started to wash his feet. And there's this dialogue back and forth between Jesus and the Pharisee, and that's essentially where we get to, is Jesus then talking a lot about the Pharisee being self-righteous, and how we are similar to the Pharisee, but we strive to be the woman who throws herself at the feet. So just for a little bit of context, we're kind of diving right into and stuff. But I think for me particularly, I would say in my life, I am similar to you guys. I can identify a bit like the Pharisee, who was the well-known religious leader who knew everything and yada, 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 whether that's in my job, whether that's life, whether it's, who knows. But at the same time, my response probably should be more like the woman who recognizes her sin and just is overwhelmed by not what she has done for herself, because we can't save ourselves, but rather what Jesus has already done for her. I mean, I can think about countless times in my life where I've been self-righteous as opposed to the woman. And I actually find that when I'm self-righteous, it leads to my downfall and it leads to my sin. And I guess that's possibly another question that we can toss out there is, maybe not when, but how in your guys' lives have you identified moments when you're being self-righteous, or maybe even identified moments of when you feel like the woman?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that kind of goes to what I thought about the sermon, which is it's sometimes hard to detect, mainly because this self-righteous nature, this for me, instinct to correct and be like, no, you're wrong, usually is gut instinct. It comes just naturally a lot of the time, and it usually doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't mean there's malicious intent behind it. Sometimes it just can be a little blunt. But the way you detect it is kind of, one, read the room, see what the context is, and then two, kind of put yourself in the other person's shoes. Like, how would they feel if I were to say you're wrong outright, and how might I be able to help them grow and learn in other ways? But yeah, it can be really hard to detect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For me, often in the moment, it is very much so. It feels like the Spirit intervening.
Oh, yeah.
Like I am mentally in the milliseconds it takes to process, what somebody just said to you, and you to think your thought before you speak it.
Yeah.
In those fractions of a second, I feel like the Spirit, when I truly am being self-righteous, kind of just,
plucks you right back out.
Yeah, it just kind of hits me, and I'm like, whoa.
Yep.
Let's slow down. Like, let's not take this so personally. Let's be a little bit more humble.
You can't do it by yourself.
And let's emulate, emulate Christ as best we can. That's not to say that happens every time. There are moments where things come out and I say things or I act a certain way that makes me feel and appear very self-righteous. And that's terrible, but it's the reality of being human.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, and you just said something that I think is the only way we actually can truly overcome our self-righteousness.
Remove the self.
Yeah, remove the self and honestly replace it with the Holy Spirit, right? That's
Absolutely.
like the only thing. Just continue to lean into and rely on God and His Holy Spirit to help us and purge ourselves of ourselves.
Yeah. There was an interesting note made by Pastor Gunnar, which is the more you pursue this, the more you purge it, the more you become aware of yourself and how much you're a sinner, and how much it not becomes a burden but becomes visible. And I get that. It's a hard thing to see, but it makes sense. You're learning to kind of view the world through God's shoes or Christ-like shoes rather than your own eyes.
Own lens.
I believe he used a quote from the now past commentator William Barclay. The better the man, the more he feels his sin. Which is not to say that the more righteous you are, the more you feel sin. It's inverted. But the more in tune you are with the Spirit and with Christ, the more you feel your sin. And that's not God like slamming His hand down on you, telling you to feel the weight that you're a sinner and you should feel bad. It's the opposite. It's you being aware of your sin and being thankful to God for the gift that was Christ. And being aware that you are a sinner and that you need to be forgiven and that God will forgive you. Rather than saying, I'm my own man, I can handle myself, this isn't a big deal in my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up a little bit, unless there's anything else. But really appreciate everyone tuning in. Feel free to jump into the sermon. I know it's online as well. Any other announcements that we really have for the church so far this week?
Just feel free to join us for our in-person worship services at 9 and 10:30. And also... if you are a parent of a student or a student, this Sunday there will be Pastor Rachel Toon will be giving a conversation on what the pros and cons of going to a Christian college are in the gathering place after the 10:30 service. So if you're interested, go to the weekly guide and RSVP for that.
Absolutely. And that's set out to be a really cool talk. And it's before Super Bowl, so it won't conflict with anything.
There you go.
So you got no excuse. It's going to be really cool.
I do believe there will be lunch as well.
Perfect.
There you go. Even
awesome.
better.
Well, hey, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you next week.
Take care, guys.